Alright, so before I begin, I want to apologize in advance for any grammatical or pronunciation errors I may make throughout this video. As you may notice, I'm not a native English speaker, but these topics interest me a lot and it's a good way to practice the language. With that said, let's get to it. Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, aka El Mencho, is the leader of the criminal organization Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, by its acronym CJNG. Okay, we already know that, but where does this character come from? How long has he been operating? What did he do before becoming the leader of the most relevant criminal organization of the moment? Well, El Mencho is originally from a town called Aguililla, Michoacán, a place that in 2020 was disputed by the CJNG against another cartel called La Nueva Familia Michoacana, or the New Michoacan Family, which was allied with the Sinaloa cartel, whose confrontation caused a crisis in the Mexican government. His real first name is Rubén. Nemesio was the name of an uncle of his who was also in the drug business. The last time El Mencho stepped foot in a prison in the state of California, he called himself Nemesio, and at the time of his deportation to Mexico, Nemesio was his permanent name as well as his nickname El Mencho. In the late 90s, El Mencho returned to Michoacán and joined a criminal group operating in the area at the time called Los Valencia, led by Armando Valencia Cornelio. In those years, Los Valencias had made an alliance with Fabio Ochoa Vázquez, a Colombian trafficker whom the DEA had already identified as a distributor on the east coast of the United States. Due to his laboratories located in Medellin, he was able to produce up to 3 tons of high-purity white powder weekly. But the US government was already on the lookout for this capo. So, in the face of an imminent seizure that meant a total loss, he sold his production to Los Valencias at a very low price, which meant a takeoff point for the organization. The Michoacán organization stealthily began to position itself among its competitors, the Sinaloa cartel, the Tijuana cartel, and the Gulf cartel. Their way of getting drugs into Mexico was through ports located in the states of Jalisco, Colima, and Michoacán. This is how the DEA baptized the Valencias organization as the Millennium Cartel, or Cartel del Milenio. The Millennium Cartel was already becoming a major cartel, so a cartel war was only a matter of time. This is how El Mencho was recruited. The only thing they needed from him was to know how to use firearms and be willing to carry out the orders of the Valencias without question. The Valencias were allies of the Sinaloa cartel at the time, due to the pact that united them with the Beltran Leiva organization, Nacho Coronels, and Ismael Zambadas in a single federation. Replacing Otoniel Mendoza, aka Tony Montana, El Mencho began as a hitman leader under the orders of Eric Valencia, aka El 85, or the 85. Everybody was under the command of Armando Valencia, who was the cartel's top leader. El Mencho began to climb the ladder in the organization and started to get involved in issues that had to do with client lists, drug warehouses, drug trafficking lines, and sometimes he was a messenger between cartel bosses. Eventually, the war broke out, and the Gulf Cartel arrive in Michoacan with its armed wing, Los Zetas, and displace the Valencias, making them retreat to the Sinaloa Cartel's plaza in Guadalajara, whose name was Cartel del Pacífico, and which was led by Nacho Coronel. The expansion of the Zetas forced the Sinaloa alliance to create a group to counterbalance them, as Nacho Coronel used to say. Osiel Cárdenas Guillén, patron of the Gulf, terrorized society with violent executions, threatening to become the #1 cartel in the world. Around his armed wing of ex-military men, myths were created that made them invincible and seriously worried not only the authorities, but also the drug lords opposed to the Gulf Cartel. For this reason, several groups known as Matacetas were created, sponsored by Nacho Coronel, who collected support from Zambada, Guzman, and El Azul Esparragosa. With the Federation's approval, El 85 was instructed to create vigilante groups in all the places where the Zetas had a presence. With the rise of these vigilante groups came the downfall of the Milenio Cartel, and the Valencias and other gunmen now posed a threat to their bosses, to the point that the fracture resulted, some say, in the end of Nacho Coronel. The struggle for control of the organization began, and brothers Oscar Orlando and Juan Carlos Nava Valencia proposed the promotion of Elpidio, aka El Pilo Mojarro, a man who had earned the trust of the now extinct Cartel del Milenio. For his part, El 85, fearing betrayal by his cousins, tried to impose Mencho Ceguera, whom many accused of planning to hand over the Nava Valencia family in order to stay with the entire structure and create a new cartel. Mencho Ceguera's mistake was to entrust his plan to one of Elpidio Mojarro's gunmen, known as Gerardón. Gerardón informed his boss, and when a meeting was held, it was announced that Mencho was a traitor. Eric Valencia Salazar, El 85, defended El Mencho, and between insults and death threats, El Mencho asked for the head of Gerardo Mendoza Gerardón, accusing him of being an addict who stole the merchandise to consume it, and that since he was lost in vice, he was no good for anything, not even to kill chickens. It was agreed to have another meeting when they were cooler, but it was no longer possible. Gerardón was hurt by the words of El Mencho, and to show him what a tecato or drug addict was capable of, he located a group of Mencho's gunmen who were in Tecoman to do a job. Others say they had gone to celebrate the promotion of their boss and surprised them and massacred them. And a new group called La Resistencia were formed. This armed organization would later become the powerful Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación. The connections that Mencho had met along the way, his contacts in South America when he was an errand boy, and the independent agenda that his brothers-in-law, the Queenies, were working on in Europe and East Asia, catapulted the CJNG in a few years from being an armed wing to become the most powerful cartel in the country. Interesting to mention that at least in Michoacán and Jalisco, the protection and complicity of the Queenies and the Matacetas was a key factor in their success. The sponsorship of the self-defense groups, national insurgent groups, and community police in several states has been a strategy that has allowed the Jalisco cartel advance into the territories of other cartels, and in most cases with the help of the people themselves, who rarely question who is behind the armed groups disguised as a vigilante revolution. This concludes the first part about the origins of El Mencho and the CJNG. In the next episode, I will talk about the current Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, its members, and their disputes with other criminal groups. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribe and leave a comment. Thank you for watching. See you next time.